So Crocodile Dundee is coming out in 4K. I really enjoyed the original, and there was actually three movies in the series. However, this one has some issues, and it is a problem that's been around for a very long time, way before the days of 4Ks and Blu-ray. And it is something that seems to be even more common nowadays, especially with streaming services. And it's this whole idea, in my opinion, of censorship or altering the original film, show, or art that was created. In this case, for Crocodile Dundee 4K, we have the Encore cut. Now, I've never heard of that. So this site right here just kind of lists all the differences of the original and this Encore cut. Needless to say, there are quite a few cuts, and some of these scenes pretty much played a big role in the original, meaning that it made it stick out. And so I really feel that doing things like this, it really changes what the original movie art had intended, and most importantly, it really changes what it meant at that time. Because this movie came out in the 1980s, if I remember correctly, it's like 1987. And obviously things were different in 1987. And this is kind of like something that's more symptomatic or has become epidemic, especially in our quote unquote modern age of movies, films, and shows, in that a lot of these studios or even the directors themselves will go in and make edits to suit modern audiences, or just make changes that they feel that they wanted to make. And this is really unfortunate for me, because now if you're watching this Encore cut and you've never seen the original, well, you won't know what the original film was. You won't know what the original vision was, the time period that it was at. All those things really matter. And in some cases, such as streaming services, if that's the only thing you're using, you'll probably never be able to see the quote unquote original version. And that is a really sad state of where we're at. And as I mentioned before, this has been happening for a long time. So if you are old enough to remember made for TV, those were edited. Okay, so it's been around for as long as I can remember. It's just that in our modern age, it seems like more and more films, movies, shows are being edited for quote unquote modern audiences, whatever that means. And in the future, it might be edited again. And then we have some other cases where there's not really major edits to the film, but it's definitely not the original. Case in point, Terminator 2, one of my top favorite movies of all time. So James Cameron made some changes with this, specifically in the way that it looks. I think a lot of AI was used here to make it look like a newer movie, basically removing a lot of the film grain that was in the original and trying to make it look more like a modern film. And so in that case, it doesn't have the film-like qualities and characteristics of the original. So I kind of understand what James Cameron is trying to do, but it does change the way that this film looked, and how it's presented. And James Cameron has done this multiple times. Plus, there was a scene in here with the truck where they added a CG Arnold. And so this is a case where this director wanted to make the change in it of itself. And he's not the only one. Other directors of really popular older movies like The French Connection, William Friedkin, he also made some edits to the original. And then I would say the biggest offender is probably George Lucas. Who knows how many versions of Star Wars that we have. And if you didn't have the original VHS or Laserdisc, you probably won't be able to get the original in a Blu-ray or 4K unless you bootlegged it or got an unofficial copy. And that's really sad, because I, like many others, had a lot of memories with these original versions. And I know these aren't our films, and especially if it's the director and the creators, it's their films. But in a lot of ways, it's also our films and our childhoods for a lot of people. And it's just a simple fact that, these are been altered and being changed so much that you won't know what the originals was. For those who actually want to have a piece of history. And history is really important, because these films were made at a certain point in time, And I kind of feel whenever you're editing, altering, in some cases censoring it, you are removing parts of history. And so, yeah, this is a sad state of affairs, especially if you're only streaming, because if you're only streaming, you get whatever the studios or the original creators and director intended. But even with physical media, you can still run into a case where, well, you might not have any other choice. So, if you actually had any thoughts on this, be sure to leave in the comments there below, and I'll see you on another episode.